You think they're the rays of sunshine, but it's just El Profenito. And here to my left, we have.
Your boy Hollywood Freddy. You already know.
And I'm Jasmin from ANIMO.
Hello,
Hello,
welcome.
hello.
And so here, our special guest is Jasmin. She is a new case manager for Animo. And she is here today to talk about herself, to talk about the Animo program. And we're just going to introduce. So, Jasmin, who are you and what is Animo about? Tell us about yourself.
My name is Jasmin, and I am from Tacoma, Washington. So I've been in the area for most of my life, I would say. And I am from Pierce County, but I was working in King County for the past 2 years. And yeah, I'm very passionate about building this community, and I really admire how much King County has to offer. So hence, I decided to apply at El Centro. Funny story, I actually applied 3 times before I was offered a job. But I had my eye on El Centro for a while now. So I'm happy to be part of the team. I am now working with the ANIMO program, and the ANIMO is a pre-apprenticeship program for youth ages 16 to 24 who are mostly looking to get their GED or looking into apprenticeships. And our current caseload is about 19 enrolled youth, and we're hoping to grow it to 35 by the end of July, I believe. And yeah, there's one other case manager. So I'm the new case manager working with Jesus, who's been at El Centro for a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, you can catch Jesus in some of the previous episodes as well. Your background, you said you were wanting to join El Centro. Is that something you identify with?
So my parents are both from Mexico, and they're both immigrants. My dad came here when he was a baby, so he's the only sibling born in Mexico from Michoacan, and he came during the Bracero program, and that enabled him to get his citizenship.
Quick El Profenito explanation. The Bracero program was a significant chapter of U.S. and Mexican history. This ran from 1942 to 1964 and was a series of agreements between the United States and Mexico. It was initially launched in response to labor shortages caused by World War II, with the U.S. looking to fill gaps primarily in agriculture and railroad work. The program's name comes from the Spanish term bracero, meaning manual labor or one who works using his arms. It allowed millions of Mexican men to come to the United States to work on short-term, primarily agricultural contracts. Conditions were often harsh, and the promised wages and benefits were sometimes not fully realized, leading to a range of social and economic impacts both in the US and Mexico. Workers in the Bracero program contributed significantly to the economies of both countries, yet they often faced difficult living conditions and discrimination. The program also had lasting effects on immigration policy and labor rights in the United States. As we reflect on the legacy of the Bracero program, it's crucial to acknowledge both its contributions to the US economy and the challenges the Braceros faced. This complex program highlights the ongoing conversations around labor, migration, and human rights that continue to be relevant today. Now, we continue to our regular broadcast.
So culturally, he's pretty American, but he does speak fluent English and Spanish. And then my mom, she's from Oaxaca. She came here when she was in middle school. So I want to say 13 years old, 14. She was kind of house hopping, couch surfing between different family members. They're both from families of 7. And my dad's the oldest. She's the youngest of 7. And so my mom learned English here, and she was here as an undocumented immigrant. And when she married my dad, they got my dad helped my mom get her citizenship. They thought it was really important for her to have it, not just for her own opportunities, but worst case scenario, if something ever happened to her, we wanted to make sure that if she left the country, she would be able to come back and be my mom and be my support. So yeah, I come from, again, that makes me like a first generation American. Even though they're both citizens now, they were both from Mexico originally. My mom also speaks fluent English and Spanish. We speak English at home, so my Spanish is not the best. I'm a little bit no sabo, and it's funny because Spanish was my first language, and I was speaking Spanish with my parents up until I started school, and then the population from the school that I attended in Oregon, which is where I was only there for a couple years, but there weren't many Hispanic kids and nobody spoke Spanish, so it didn't make sense for me to keep Spanish, and they didn't really make it a priority for me to practice my Spanish and continue it into adulthood. So that was a little tragic, just because now I know like the value of Spanish fluency and how much you could reach others with it. With language access in general, it's so helpful for people who are new to the country, which is a population that I really love to serve. So yeah, that's a little bit background about more my heritage or where I'm coming from. So yeah, born in Oregon, raised in Washington, been here since, and I've loved the community. I was a first generation college graduate, and it was really hard for me to navigate higher education. And so I've always been passionate about encouraging other people to pursue higher education, especially from like overlooked communities. I was there on a urban leadership scholarship, and that's what helped me afford college. And it was yeah, it's a scholarship that gets awarded to students in cohorts, and in my cohort we were like a diverse group of kids with coming from various backgrounds. And so hearing about their stories and like the obstacles that they were facing, and also like made me want to step more into leadership at my university, and kind of like so yeah, I think I've always loved being able to hold people's hands in their journey. And like in college, that looked like me being a peer mentor for students who did not look like the majority white population. So and I started like a VDAC club, so it was like the Hispanic club on campus, which is like kind of funny because like my Spanish wasn't the best. But I just saw the really alarmingly high dropout rates for Hispanic students on my college campus, and I wanted to research that a little bit. So I did some research on it only in the campus that I was in, and I looked into ways to, see their degree completion more. So I would say that was my initial passion for sure, is more higher education. Once I got my degree, I actually got it in journalism and history, and that was something that I was always passionate about as well.
Which is perfect here because you're on the podcast.
There you go.
And a little bit of history here with the Bracero program.
Exactly.
Little snippets here and there.
Yeah.
Good mesh.
Yeah. So that's always been a good, just interest of mine. And then I didn't study social work, but I always knew it was another passion. Like I loved helping people, again, like I said earlier, like walking people through their hardships and their journey in life, whatever that looks like. And so I my best friend, who I met through that scholarship program, she came to the U.S. as a refugee from Congo, and she, the same thing, like struggled a lot in high school initially, like similar to my mom. She learned English in America, um, and she learned it really, really quickly, and she like recognized all of these needs for people who look like her, and all of these barriers that they face in school that could, you know, potentially stop them from reaching their potential. And I've always been inspired by her. She's um, we were we were both leading like ethnic clubs on campus, and that came with a lot of challenges. So we were there for each other a lot, and we also were roommates the last 2 years of our college career. But yeah, knowing her and watching her growth from us being seniors in high school to like graduating college together was really special. So when I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I loved history and journalism, and I cared about people in general and watching others succeed. Um, and I didn't have any former work experience at all. Like I didn't, because of my scholarship, I didn't have to work while I was studying, and it's a privilege that I recognize. And she was like, oh, she got a job at the same resettlement agency that she came to America through. And she was like, hey, like, I think you would thrive here, and I think you would do really well here. And again, I trusted her because we walked through life together and like went through all these up and downs, and she knew me and I knew her. So I was like, okay, I mean, I don't know social work. I don't have the credentials. I don't have the job skills or history, but I have you to back me up. So she talked to the manager, and I applied, and I initially applied to the wrong state. So he was like, where's your application? And then and then she was like, and then and I sent her a screenshot, and she was like, honey, like that's not in Washington. Like you applied to Georgia or something.
Georgia. I was thinking like
Yeah.
maybe Washington D.C.
No,
Yeah,
no,
Washington D.C. Yeah.
Got it. Got
So
it.
D.C. Dang.
And so she told the manager, and he was like, oh, okay, like tell her to just send it, transfer that same application to this location. And he like sent the link. He was like, this is the one. And so she was like, okay. She let me know. I sent it over, and then the manager, he gave me a call, and I didn't realize I was being interviewed. So I thought it was just a chat, like a friendly chat. He was asking me about like my involvement in my university, my degree, like what my passions were, and what my experience was with like immigrant and refugees. And I kind of talked about like my parents' story, and how that has motivated me to, you know, honor their sacrifices that they made in this country, and like all of the hardship they went through. And yeah, he was really touched by it, just because he also, the manager, was a refugee who was resettled, or he was an asylee, I believe, who has been through the same agency, started as an intern, and kind of worked his way up. Now he's the executive director of that location. But it was like 10 plus years in the making of just like, you know, being faithful to the passions and the work. So yeah, I went to, I ended up getting hired like on the spot. He was like, okay, so do you want a job? Like when do you want to start? And I was like, literally anytime I'm on, you know? So yeah, I started my social work career with refugees at World Relief in September 2021. And that was the time when like the Taliban took over Afghanistan, and there was like a evacuation. And so a lot of
Highline District got a big influx of Afghani students
Yeah.
at that
Really?
time. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason it was that. And we opened our doors to Afghan refugees. And so, yeah, I came in at a super busy time. I didn't get trained. Like, there were my first day on the job, I had to interpret for an airport pickup, and I was like, my Spanish is not the best. And then by my second week, I had a full caseload and didn't know what to do. Like, people were texting me in different fonts, like, or different language, with like characters that I didn't recognize, or like Google Translate couldn't even figure out what language they were.
You like
speaking
copy
to
and
me,
paste, auto detect
Yeah,
language.
Yeah. So it was mostly Dari, but Google Translate only has Farsi. So that's where the mix-up happened. I was a little scared and afraid. A lot of people were quitting, and like anytime, like social workers at the time, the caseworkers on the resettlement team, it was just so busy that some of them would start and then it was too much and they would quit before their 90-day probation was up. Or people who had been there for a year plus took the first chance they could to move to a different department just because how busy it was. And so I remember like feeling like I wanted to give up, but also still being so passionate about refugees and immigrants, that my mom was like, I was like venting to her and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. Like, maybe it's just because it's my first job after college, but like, what do I do? Should I quit? Should I find something new? And she was like, Jasmin, I did not raise a quitter. You're staying there. And I was like, you're right. I made it to my 90-day, and then that 90-day became a year. And then slowly there were times where I wanted to leave because it was getting too busy. But then I remembered what I was doing that for. But I told myself, like, once I felt like I've learned all I could in this job, then I want to move to something else. So that happened at my 2-year mark. I felt like I learned the refugee resettlement process very well. I learned a lot about the resources that King County has to offer. And we also resettled refugees in Pierce, King, and Snohomish County because it was a 100-mile service radius. I didn't feel like I was learning enough to, in the long run, be able to build my community in Pierce County. I was like, I want to see things from another agency's perspective, so that eventually I have the tools necessary to, build up the community that, poured so much into me, which is in Pierce County. After that, I applied to El Centro, and I was applying to other places as well. El Centro ghosted me 3 times.
Dang, you heard that?
But then you landed at the perfect one. The universe works in mysterious ways that way.
And again,
that's true.
Yeah, because you couldn't have been possibly sitting here with us today.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm sure like the times that I wasn't hearing back from El Centro, I think I was still building a lot of skills at World Relief. So I'm really grateful that I stayed there for as long as I did. When I initially applied, I had applied to a couple different positions at El Centro. And the thing that really caught my eye about this job is that this role or this program serves people who experience different barriers, right? And some of those barriers, off the top of my head, are like foster. So some of those barriers are like foster, homeless, parenting, or pregnant. There's also disability, and then low income. So for those barriers, I give a lot of credit to my love for society, to my parents, and just being a part of their story. My parents were both teen parents, and they were both immigrants. And they were also runaways / out of school youth for some time. They started off living in a car when they found out my mom was pregnant, and they were in a really tough situation. But thankfully, there were, moments where they wanted to give up, obviously, and things were getting really hard. Um, but they did what they could to make the family function and thrive and succeed with what little they started with. Like, starting from the ground up, lived in a really, after, like, once they were in the car, they would like sneak into my dad's parents' house to take a shower. Um, and then they immediately started job searching when they knew I was on the way. They were able to, with no, again, like real job history, they were able to sell themselves enough to get like jobs to start paying for expenses and preparing for a baby. Eventually, they got to live in a really small apartment with like a roommate. Um, and then, yeah, both my mom and dad graduated high school because at the high school they were from, they had a daycare since pregnancy rates were so high.
In that time?
So they took advantage of that resource. But yeah, so again, they struggled a lot. Like there was a time where they were purchasing groceries with a credit card, and like we were on food stamps and all of these things. And yeah, I always learned to be grateful for what little I had. And now I'm 20, about to turn 25, and 25 years later, they go from living in a car to living in their dream home. So my mom has her citizenship. They both run a business together, and they're getting paid what they wouldn't have imagined, at the time when they were struggling teen parents, So yeah, it's been such a beautiful, again, story to be a part of, and that's why I was really attracted to this role, is because it's like with working at World Relief, I got to see people when they're starting from scratch and starting new, and then at this in this role with Animo, it's serving youth who are also facing barriers that might make them feel like they're starting from scratch or they don't have a lot. Like maybe they might not see the light at the end of the tunnel, or they might not see their potential right away. So I love the creativity that the role offers, that you're able to work with people one-on-one to kind of see what their skills are, and then build on those, and then just again finding creative solutions on how to motivate people to think bigger, because I know there was a time where, like, again, my parents didn't have much, and like they grew so much with the help of support, and I just love to see people step into that potential and watch their growth.
Si Se Puede Academy is a youth education and empowerment program offered by El Centro de la Raza, a community organization. Si Se Puede Academy aims to support and inspire young people to achieve academic success, develop leadership skills, and become positive contributors to their communities, focusing on promoting cultural pride and fostering a sense of community among its participants. The program provides a range of educational services and activities designed to empower students and promote their personal academic growth. For the most up-to-date information on the program, I recommend visiting El Centro de la Raza's official website or following us on Instagram, ECDLR_Si Se Puede Academy. Once again, ECDLR_Si Se Puede Academy.
How was it the first day when you came to the job? Like, how was your experience?
You want the truth?
Yeah, the truth. Well,
the
yeah.
sugarcoating? Okay.
Yes.
So, honestly, yeah. So again, I was at World Relief. I was on this high of like, wow, I have so much to offer. I know all of these like King County resources that are going to help the youth.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like, at my World Relief was very diverse. They really try to hire people with different language abilities because you're serving refugees from so many different countries.
Right.
And especially people with like refugee stories, like the executive director, you know, like he really tries to push that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had so many cool coworkers. I can't wait to see how many coworkers I have in my next job. Like I bet they're also going to be super diverse. Like as much as I loved it, like I was ready to be embraced by a Latino community, like a Hispanic workplace. And even when I got interviewed, like this is a little tea. I don't know if I should say it, but I'll say it. But at my last job, I wanted to move up in my position.
Okay.
And I applied, and I felt very qualified and confident. But the person who got that position had less experience than me, and she did not speak a second language, did not have an immigrant refugee story.
Dang.
And she was a white woman, and the manager at the time was also a white woman. The interviewers were all white women. So I just felt unseen in that moment. And maybe, you know, like maybe some people might argue that I like am looking too much into it, or maybe she had something to offer that I couldn't.
Right.
It's not necessarily that I'm bitter about it. It's just something that I saw, that I told myself, like, the next place that I work at, I want to see myself in leadership.
That's unfortunately a little too common.
Yeah.
I've had that happen where I was working with someone and I had more experience in working in the classrooms, and coming to find out months later, I found out they were getting paid more than me with no experience in the classrooms. And
That's crazy.
So then I had like a week break, and so the manager had to go in and work in my position, and she didn't realize like how much I did.
Yeah.
And then when I returned, she ended up giving me a raise and then some. But she was a fairly new manager that came in after we were both like hired and working, and then she caught that discrepancy and then kind of fixed that after.
Wow.
So it unfortunately happens a little common up here in an area that people think it's like maybe progressive or beacon. It's like, no, it exists everywhere.
Yeah.
It's still out there.
Yeah.
I got those moments too. A lot of them.
Oh yeah.
A lot. I got a lot of those.
And it's very discouraging, you know, like it's especially when you know how much you pour into your work and into the things that you care about. And like, not to brag, but like I had a lot of other people in that organization really root for me and rally for me to like get into this position. But again, I feel like it all like was meant to happen. I think the timing was great. So again, I'm like, my transition out of that job, like my last day was on February 16th, and my first day here was February 19th.
Oh, okay. So it was like what, 3 days?
It was like right away. So the weekend happened, and then I started my new job.
And you were like, were you excited though? You were hella excited.
So I was, yeah. So I was really excited.
Okay, that's good.
I was really excited.
That's good.
And then I was super pumped because the people who interviewed me were both Hispanic women in leadership. And that was extremely inspiring to me. And, you know, I'm like super giddy, and I have to onboard in Seattle, but I was still going to visit the federal location after where I'll actually be working. So I go to Seattle. It's really cool. Like, everyone there, they're still wearing masks. I'm like, okay, interesting. Like, I'm pretty sure we don't have to do that anymore, but hope they don't ask me to wear one. Or at least at this time, like after all this time, you know? And then, so yeah, my new manager is like, okay, Jesus, the other case manager, he's gonna be waiting for you at the Federal Way location. Just let him know when you're coming. Like, here's his number. It's like, all right. So I text him and I'm like, hey, I'm on my way, like, work buddy. And I'm super excited. I get down here and I knock on the wrong building, and I'm like knocking and ringing the doorbell, and the front desk is there and is just looking at me. but didn't actually come out until like I was really begging. I don't know if I looked nuffy or what, like if I looked sketchy. And then
Dang.
finally she was like, "Oh, like, are you expecting someone?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to meet Jesus." And she was like, "Who?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Because at World Relief, everyone knows everyone. Like,
Right.
you know the front desk person, they know you. Like, they have a bunch of employees, but it's so community based that you know about another department and what project they're doing, and like, you know, like all of the details. You collaborate with one another. So I was like already like, okay, maybe not the best start. Maybe she's new. Maybe she doesn't know Jesus. Maybe Jesus is new. I don't know. I let Jesus know, like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like ringing the doorbell for the front door, and he didn't unlock it. So he had to meet me from the back door. So he scared me. Like, I turned around and he just appeared since the front door was locked. And yeah, so he showed me around the building, and I walked into the building, and oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it, because the building was so messy and it was empty.
Yeah.
And for someone who loves to be around people, it's a nightmare. It's an extrovert's nightmare is to work somewhere where you have legit one coworker. So
Damn. I would never imagine that. I can never do that.
Yeah.
I can never do that.
Yeah. So I got here, and like Jesus, and he's just like letting me know, like, oh, I think this is gonna be your desk space. I'm not quite sure. You can put your stuff down if you want, and like, you know, like, here's each place. That might be one participant.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I was, again, like, I was just shocked. I was not expecting that. And then I was a little bit discouraged, I'm not gonna lie, because it kind of felt like the building was neglected and it wasn't being prioritized. But then I had to realize, like, okay, I did get hired for a reason. So clearly there is like some type of budget for these programs and for these youth. And yeah, I decided to stay optimistic. Anita was out sick at the time I had started, and then the following week my manager left. Jesus was on vacation. Like, I didn't meet anyone.
No.
So it wasn't until my third week that I started meeting people, and like slowly I saw Nito, and then I learned about his program. Got really excited that it wasn't just ANIMO in this really empty building.
Empty building.
And then also slowly, like every week, someone new was getting hired. And so now it looks like there's 3 programs or 4 different programs in this building. And
That's
there's
a good thing,
about 9 of us now.
Yeah.
So that's been very encouraging and exciting.
Very exciting. It's brand new for me too, because it was only used to be 4. And then as soon as I got back, I feel like it was like I had to meet so many new people now. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, I get shy a little bit.
To start off. Then once you say hello, then you're fine.
Yeah, I'll be good. I'll get very shy. I don't know why.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, I'm like new person. Like, you don't know like what intentions I have in this job. Some people only like accept jobs because they need to, but others are there because they want to. I feel like most social workers are there because they want to.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, they have to be.
But it's definitely been nice. You've come in and definitely just created a whole new facelift. Coming back from the winter break was definitely a little tough getting the momentum back up. But seeing new faces, seeing new people with so much passion has been good fuel. Good fuel for the vessels here, for the veins.
For sure. I can say that for sure, yeah. I think it's very encouraging to meet.
It's also been so good just seeing more people in those offices.
Yeah, because before it was so empty. I kid you not. Remember the other office I was talking about, like the empty one? There was nobody there. It was just a dark room.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like the room was dark. There was like random furniture in the office spaces, and so
it was the overflow.
It was overflow.
Like empty filing cabinets. I'm like, why are they here?
Yeah, and well, luckily we have new spaces, new people like to interact. The new people are kind of come in like students wise to talk to new people, because that was another thing, another thing too, there you go, I caught yourself, is that I feel like a lot of people, there was like, everybody was back then, they were busy a little bit, and like I sometimes I don't want to come because like I don't want to like I want to come, but like I don't want to be like in your guys' way. Now like I get to work and still interact with people and be there like to talk.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And again, new faces, new passions. I'm really excited to, jumpstart those charlas again.
Yeah.
Have more people
sure.
in the
The charla has
space.
been good
Definitely
to
good.
kind of create that community feel. And definitely the collaboration aspect of things is kind of how this podcast kind of started too, was kind of like, how do we connect the programas a little bit more? How do we interact with other participants a little more? And so, right, we have you, Animo, now here. We had BOC come in. So if there's any other El Centro programs, we're going to reach out and ask you to come in and just share about yourself.
For sure, come through.
We have Animo now, Jasmin. So again,
Shout out to Jasmin.
she'll give a little more info on Animo. So feel free to click on the bios, the link, so you could learn more. We're trying to get to the 35 by the end of July.
Yes.
All right. So
Let's get to that.
yeah, let's get it. Let's get it. Yes, and if you want to stop by to the Si Se Puede Academy, there's a whole new other facelift. It looks nice. We have a new job board that Jasmin has up and running in this podcast room. So we have lots of more resources, lots of more people to ask your questions to.
Lots more reasons to come.
Lots
sure,
more reasons
for
to
sure.
come.
We have snacks.
We do have snacks.
And they're not expired. I threw out everything.
Finally,
else
they're not expired. That
Yes,
was another
not
thing.
expired snacks.
Me too.
Thank you,
Thank you, for sure.
Is what we needed for sure, and you've been a great addition to the space. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you. And Molcajete Flowers is
Come. See you later, guys.
Enjoy the sun.
Enjoy the
yes.
suns.
Bye bye.